Am I the only one that didn't know some WWII soldiers survived weeks in brutal conditions, while others died just because their gear failed? Modern survival gear promises everything at once: waterproof, ultralight, breathable, and indestructible. Yet anyone who has spent more than a night in relentless rain or cold knows how quickly those promises fall apart. Plastic tarps tear in high wind. Synthetic jackets trap sweat until you're soaked from the inside. Sunlight quietly weakens materials until they fail without warning. Want to see more survival secrets and gear breakdowns? Make sure to subscribe and stay updated for new videos every week. In a true survival situation, this isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. During World War II, failure of shelter or clothing wasn't a minor setback. It was often a death sentence. Pilots ditched into freezing seas. Infantry lived for weeks in constant rain. Reconnaissance units survived months without proper resupply, fully exposed to the elements. Under those conditions, gear had to work every time. No excuses, no marketing language, just survival. And that pressure led to the creation of a fabric system so effective that it still outperforms much of what is sold today. Before we dive deeper, if you value real history, practical survival knowledge, and field-tested solutions that actually worked when lives depended on them, take a moment to like this video. Share it with fellow history enthusiasts. Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Warcraft Survival. It's the best way to help keep this knowledge alive. Now, let's get into it. By the early 1940s, military engineers faced a serious contradiction. Rubberized fabrics were waterproof, but they cracked, delaminated, and trapped sweat. Once damaged, they failed completely. Untreated cotton breathed well, but absorbed water rapidly, became heavy, and drained body heat. Nowhere was this more deadly than in the air war. British pilots who survived crashing into cold water often died from exposure before rescue arrived. What was needed was not just waterproofing, but, well, balance. A fabric that resisted rain and wind without sealing the body inside a plastic shell. A material that remained strong when wet, survived abrasion, and could be repaired in the field. The solution did not come from plastics. It came from a radical rethinking of natural fibers. Ventile and the science of swelling fibers. The breakthrough was tightly woven long staple cotton, engineered at the fiber level. In Britain, this led to the development of Ventile cloth. Unlike coated fabrics, Ventile relied on density rather than layers. The cotton fibers were woven so tightly that when exposed to water, they physically swelled shut. Rain pressure caused the fabric to seal itself. The material didn't need a plastic membrane. The fabric itself became the barrier. Under normal conditions, Ventile breathed. Body heat pushed moisture outward instead of trapping it inside. When rain intensified, the fabric reacted dynamically, closing its weave and blocking penetration. Even when fully wet, it retained strength and flexibility. There was no catastrophic failure point. Similar principles were used across wartime equipment. Waxed canvas and oil-treated cloth appeared everywhere, from tents and bivouac covers to packs, vehicle covers and supply wraps. These fabrics didn't pretend moisture didn't exist. They managed it. Why did World War II fabrics outperform modern tarps? Well, plastic tarps are waterproof because they are, completely impermeable. But that same feature creates condensation underneath, soaking clothing and bedding from the inside. So, during the Second World War, fabric systems actually behaved a bit differently. Light rain would just bead up and run right off the surface. But when the rain got heavier, the fibres would swell up and seal themselves, keeping water out. Any heat from the body or even from a fire would help drive moisture outward instead of trapping it inside the clothing. That was pretty clever, honestly. Durability, well, that was another really critical advantage. Waxed canvas resisted abrasion much better than most modern synthetics. If you dragged it across rock, branches or even metal, it would simply wear down gradually rather than tearing open right away. Even when fabric was punctured, it could still function and be repaired. In long-term field conditions, gradual wear was far safer than, sudden failure. Ultraviolet resistance mattered as well. Natural fibres, well, they degraded slowly and predictably. Plastics, on the other hand, often degrade invisibly until they fail without warning. Soldiers needed reliability, not perfection. How soldiers used and maintained these fabrics was really quite crucial. Ground forces used treated canvas for tents, bivouacs and packliners. Air crews relied on Ventile garments that could keep them alive for hours in freezing seas. Vehicle crews protected engines and supplies with waxed covers that resisted rain, oil and mechanical wear. Maintenance was simple. When water resistance declined, wax or oil was reapplied using heat and friction. No specialized chemicals were required. Units could maintain their own gear indefinitely. That self-sufficiency is a lesson modern survivalists often overlook. Applying World War II fabric principles today, well, these techniques are still practical. A modern survival shelter can be built from heavy cotton canvas treated with a paraffin and natural oil blend. The fabric should be stretched taut. The wax mixture is warmed until liquid and brushed deeply into the fibres, with special attention to seams and stress points. Gentle heat helps the treatment penetrate and cure. For clothing, tightly woven cotton garments treated lightly gain wind and rain resistance while remaining flexible and breathable. Repairs require nothing more than needle, thread and additional wax. There is no dependence on replacement gear or fragile coatings. Why this knowledge still matters is, honestly, quite remarkable. World War II fabric systems were not primitive at all. They were refined solutions, born from necessity and built on centuries of sailcloth and oilskin knowledge. These materials were tested under truly extreme conditions. They weren't abandoned after the war because they failed, but rather because plastics were cheaper and required less skilled labour. Rediscovering these materials Well, it reconnects survival practice with proven systems, instead of just chasing marketing cycles. Waxed canvas and tightly woven cotton, they don't promise perfection. Instead, they promise reliability, repairability, and predictable performance when conditions turn hostile. If you found this guide valuable, make sure you subscribe to Warcraft Survival and share this episode with fellow history and survival enthusiasts. Keeping this knowledge alive ensures it won't be lost again when it's needed most.